snafu, but we're going to come on. I've already talked to Jerry. We were all dialed up. And then, one of these new things on the platform that we're using, but it's all good. Hope you're doing well. Great to have you here on YouTube Live. Matter of fact, while I'm talking to you, I'm going to put out a new link. That's just the world we live in. You got to go on the fly. You got to adjust. You got to adjust. So I'm going to adjust. Bear with me right here as I put out a new link for those that want to follow the stream to be able to do so. All right. How the hell are you? Having a good day? I'm having a good day. It kind of derailed a little bit when I was getting ready to go on, but as they say, you got to adjust on the fly, right? You got to adjust. You got to adjust. You can't be messing around. You got to be able to, all right, what are you going to do now? Right? All right. So you got an issue. Now what are you going to do? You're going to close up shop or are you just going to move along? So let me put this post out because I have a new link and I want to make sure that everybody that wants to get on the stream here can do so. All right. All right, good. So Jerry is going to come on here in just a second. Trust me when I say that. All right. Trust me. Oh, you know what? Actually, I can't even send the link because when I send the link, I come on. That's the way it goes. I'm doing my best here. You like how we're doing this on the fly? There's Jerry. There's all right. I'm doing my best here. I'm actually watching myself on YouTube and everything else. All right, the one and only Jerry Reynolds. Jerry, I gotta give you credit here because I'm always getting on your case for not being on the stream. You've already been on 3 or 4 times today, so I'm very impressed with you.
Yeah, I was going to say I'm, little, really not impressed with you here lately. You got, you just got my hero. You've got to drop back a notch.
Oh my gosh! All right. So anyway, we appreciate everyone coming on the chat line. The Kings have had 2 stinkers back to back in the Knicks, and then of course last night Joel Embiid. It was like men against boys in that first quarter, Jerry. It didn't even look like the same league,
No, really didn't. I mean, he is such a handful. I mean, obviously so skilled and big, and the Sixers, really took advantage of that. I mean, and certainly you had to give double team coverage on him, and that opened up a lot of easy shots for guys. And bottom line is they played really well when they had to, and I thought Harden was awfully good in that first half, which might have even been more of the separation than Embiid in some ways.
Yep.
But then, second half actually neither team played very well, really. I mean, it was a case in my mind of Sabonis was the only guy that showed up for the Kings, really.
The issue that I'm seeing right now is Davion Mitchell is very limited offensively. We saw that in his 2 starts when De'Aaron had the foot issue at Cleveland and at the Knicks. And then when you have a game like last night where De'Aaron is struggling with a shot, which has been a repetitive pattern the last few weeks, you're getting very little production from the point guard position. Do you feel that is a concern going forward, the lack of scoring punch at that position when De'Aaron's not on the floor or when he's struggling?
Well, yeah, I do. I mean, they need De'Aaron to score. I mean, that's what he's best at is scoring. And as you point out, I mean, really, the last few games he hasn't been a productive scorer, and so that makes it tougher on Davion because that's not really what he is. But you need points out of that position, and then compounded by the fact that Malik Monk hasn't been particularly productive. He's getting the 14 points on 14 shots kind of thing. So not been nearly as as productive as he had been. So the guard, and then throw in Kevin Herter. So it's a case where Davion, you can overlook Davion not being particularly good offensively if the other guys are playing like they're supposed to, and then he can be who he is, which is really an excellent defender and scrappy guy. You shouldn't have to need a lot of points from him. The points should come from those other guys.
Jerry, you know about peaks and valleys when you're coaching. Actually, in the NBA, when you coached, there were mostly valleys. There weren't a lot of peaks.
Valleys,
Right?
big gulches. I'd call them gulches.
But the things can change in a hurry in the NBA. We saw it with the Kings getting off to an 0-4 start, and then they caught fire. they still have a chance to make this a good road trip if they can win tonight and win in Detroit. Conversely, this could be like a nightmare if you lose these next two games. So I normally wouldn't say this in December. There's no such thing as a must-win game in December. I'm not even going close with that. The point I'm trying to make is when the Kings lost to Philadelphia last night, they went from 5th to 7th in the standings, and now they're only a game and a half from being the 11th team in the West. Things are changing in a hurry. And I know it's a cliche, Jerry, but I think this season, every game really does make a difference.
Well, it's probably more than I can remember because there's no real for sure number one team, and there's no for sure 10 team.
Yep.
I mean, it's like as a fan, say I would say, well, most of us would say well, you're almost a third of the way through the season, and who would have thought you'd be one game behind the Phoenix Suns and one game ahead of the Golden State Warriors at this stage? Well, you'd be pretty thrilled with that. But it's also true. It's so bunched up that as you pointed out, I mean, you can go through a 3-7 stretch in the schedule and kind of be in the 10th, 11th place, or because it's I mean, there's some good teams out west. There's no doubt, but I don't see anybody that's going to win 60 games. I'll be surprised if any team wins more than 55 in the West.
I agree with you. Keegan Murray, a rookie, and he has had a very Jekyll and Hyde season. I've been more concerned, or I think the bigger issue, you want him to score, but there are games when he just doesn't rebound, which is a little perplexing to me. Where is his game right now in your viewpoint?
Well, I think he's still sorting it all out. I agree with you. I mean, I think the biggest thing I've seen with him is his game depends too much on the spot up three. And, got to find ways to a little bit. Really, his rookie year so far, he reminded me a lot of Tyrese Halliburton's. People forget that, he was really up and down early. He really didn't have much of a float. He developed the floater, the mid-range shot, and things like that as the season went. And that's kind of where Keegan has to. He's got to get more confident of putting the ball on the floor and pulling up and shooting a mid-range shot, because teams now know that basically he's looking to shoot the spot up three. So you've got to adjust. And then as far as rebounding, I think he's honestly getting a little better there. I mean, you see his body, he blocks some shots. I think he has a potential to be an adequate rebounder. I don't say that he is right now, but that's kind of, I mean, that really is a problem, because right now, other than Domas, who's going to get tough rebounds?
All right, let's get to this message. What about Sabonis? And I know that fans always think their team's getting screwed. What about him? He does get a lot of fouls called on him. Are you okay with the way they're calling the game on him?
Yeah, I think. I mean, he gets some bad calls, but he also gets some good calls offensively. I think Sabonis really has gotten, I mean, like most physical, aggressive players. He gets to the line 2 or 3 times when, in my mind, it's not merited. Where he's creating all the contact, but that's the way it's always been. And whether you're Sabonis or you're Embiid, I mean, the big player that's aggressive and can put your body into the defender, you're going to get calls. So, I mean, if you just look at the number of free throws he's getting, and defensively, he's getting some tough calls. But the problem is that the perimeter people aren't keeping their people in front of him very well, and he's always the second line of defense. So that means guys are getting a run at him, and he's going to foul him. In a nutshell, I think he's getting a good whistle. I mean, I think people spend way too much time worrying about that.
Kings and Raptors tonight. I've not had a chance to watch the Raptors maybe more than once. One thing I've noticed is they're a team that's really good at home and really poor on the road. At home, they're 10-3. Kings are coming off a back-to-back. So, again, the Raptors feel good when they're in that building. So I think the Kings are going to have to bring an A game tonight.
Oh, I do too. And that's a tough place to play, as you know. I mean, they got a great crowd.
Yes, they do.
And I mean, when they're healthy, I mean, they're talented. This is a team that should have a better record than they do. I mean, they've had Van Vliet out a while. Siakam has missed some games, and OG Anunoby. But those guys are big-time players.
Yes.
And so I mean, they're one of those teams that you look in the East. I mean, they could definitely be a top 3 or 4 team when it's all sorted out. I don't know if they will be because it's a lot of probably more talent in the East. But yeah, the Kings will have to play as good a game as they played all year in order to get this win.
Boy, speaking of the East, how perplexing have the Miami Heat been this year? I know they were dealing with a couple of injuries, but still, even with that said, they were the number one seed in the conference last year.
Yeah, they really have been disappointing. Maybe right along with you'd have to say the Warriors and the Lakers, maybe in the West, teams that you expected to be much better than they are. But the Heat, I think a lot of it, and then maybe it's just me, but so much of it goes back to Jimmy Butler. I
Mm.
mean, Jimmy Butler's the
Yes.
guy that makes that team good. You
Yep.
take him off there, they're not very good and are very talented, really. And he's missed a lot of games. And I think Jimmy, you know, in my mind anyway, he's one of those guys that wants to play when it's big games. And when it's big games, he will play and he'll be great. But just the regular season, I mean, I think you've seen him, you don't see him all the time and or when he's really not into it. So they're very much dependent on Jimmy Butler, and I think for them to make a run, he's going to have to stay on the floor and really get it going, and he probably will.
All right, here we are. We're 25 or so games in for most teams in the NBA, and you're always trying to figure out how you can make your team better. We're still 2 months away from the NBA trade deadline, but we have now a good sample size with the Kings. And I think the sample size with the Kings is better than most teams because, for all intents and purposes, they've been completely healthy with the exception of a game here or a game there. What do you think this team really needs if they could obtain it? What do you think is realistic? What's an area of this team where you're like, okay, we need to go out and get that piece?
Yeah, if they could get a big wing or a guy that could play behind Sabonis or with Sabonis, that's the key. I've always said that, and I've said this before, and a lot of people criticize me, but last January I said the two guys that the Kings really needed to get was Malik Monk and Bobby Portis. And I think of Bobby Portis as the exact type. That's what I'm not saying you can get Bobby Portis but you need a guy that has enough size and toughness to play some center, protect the rim a little bit, but can step out and make 3-point shots and stretch the floor and could fit in with this style of play. And that's to me, the only thing or the most of what they need. They've got enough guard line. They've got enough wings that can shoot the ball deep, but they need another big that can shoot deep, block a shot, knock somebody on their butt. you know,
Yeah.
somebody that is not trying to be everybody's best friend.
Update on Kevin Herter. He is a game time decision, but the word coming from Toronto is they believe he will play, but he is a game time decision. We're getting a lot of people, not a lot, but we're getting some people asking about the rotation and why Mike Brown doesn't play Rashawn Holmes. Jerry, I always love the line you said on the air some 25 years ago when we were doing a game. And you go, hey, man, it's not Little League Baseball. Not everybody gets a chance to play 3 innings. You can't play everybody. Is that what we're dealing with here?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, whether we could all criticize and said, well, why doesn't he play Holmes instead of Metu? You can say that. I mean, Metu's been very good in his role. Uh, I mean, I do think, that Holmes, if Holmes could get back to playing the way he was 3 or 4 years ago,
Yeah.
he could really help this team because he played physical and he can spot shoot. I mean, I would kind of probably like some of the fans. I don't know. I mean, he hasn't. I don't blame Mike Brown because Rashawn hasn't demanded minutes
Hmm.
by the way he's played, but he does at least have some of the physical characteristics of what they don't have. And I've always said, and to me, if you were going to play Rashawn, then you got to realize you can't play with him like you do Metu or Domas. I mean, in other words, if I'm going to bring Holmes in as a backup center, I'm going to play a lot of high screen roles. That's where he was good, with a little pick and pop. The 18 footers. That's that type of thing. And so the minutes he's on the floor, you play different. But I mean, that's not a big adjustment. But so, I mean, I think that I mean, I am, I guess, second guessing Coach Brown a little bit. Don't mean to, because he has done nothing wrong. But I think if in fact you need a certain thing, and maybe you can't always trade for it, you might have it right there. And if you do, uh, I know Holmes is a way better player than he's
Yeah,
played. That's all
yeah.
I know. I've
Well,
seen him, and you've seen him,
yes.
and right now he's just a lost soul.
Well, here's something else I know. If you could get back to where you were 3 or 4 years ago, you'd probably cut a couple of minutes off your daily walks.
Yeah, I mean, I've lost a step. There's no doubt about that, and the brain cells are diminishing on a rapid rate. But I think I can hang in there another 6 months anyway.
You're a beauty. Hey, I want to let everyone know we're brought to you by New Works Plumbing of Sacramento, locally owned for over 20 years. New Works has a fix for you. Just go to sacserviceplumbing.com or call the number on your screen, 916-73-1010. New Works Plumbing. Remember, if you have an emergency in the middle of the night, they'll be there with their 24/7 service. Check them out, sacserviceplumbing.com. All right, offensively, again, no Fox at the Garden. First time this year they didn't score 100. Kings were very limited offensively yesterday. Again, very small sample size because their offense has been the story. That is the identity of this team, is that they can score with anybody. Is it just missed shots that you're seeing right now, or do you think there's more to it, that they're now in a rut offensively?
Well, that's a big part of it. I mean, they've gotten pretty good shots. I do think that when you look at this team and you say, well, why did they lose? Well, there's kind of three things that are important for this team. They got to take and make 3-point shots. I mean, between 36 and 40%. Well, they haven't been doing that. They've got to take care of the ball at a 2-to-1 ratio. They had been. They're not now. They're turning it over way too much, which puts the other team in the open court. And the bench has got to be productive, which they've been terrific most of the season. But the last few games, they have not been good. So to me, it's those three things. I would say, the people would say, well, maybe they're taking rushed shots. I don't know. I mean, I've seen Herter and Monk having easier or tougher shots than that on the road and when they made them. And certainly, Fox had been knocking down shots. So just the eye test tells me that it's mostly a case of just, okay, make your shots. I mean, and I think the Kings are getting enough good shots, but the problem is with a 3-point shooting team, as the Warriors finds out too, or any team when they're not making them, that really opens the backcourt up. The transition game goes the other way pretty quick on long rebounds.
Dog, I do not think this is one of the biggest games of the season. When you do this for a long time, you realize that 82 games is a lot of games. And I don't point to a game in December when a team is playing as well as Sacramento has for the most part as one of the biggest games of the season. Is it a big game? Yeah, it's a big game because, you don't want to go on a 3-game losing streak, but there are a lot of games left in this season. And I'm going to tell you, and Jerry knows this a hell of a lot better than I do, there's still going to be peaks and valleys in this season. Listen, the Kings aren't going to win 50 games, okay? They're still going to have stretches where you're like, uh-oh, we have hit a rut. That's part of the deal. So don't put too much on any one game in December. That's how I look at it, Jerry.
Well, I agree. I mean, hey, that's all Milwaukee get beat in Houston. You
Yeah.
know, I've seen, Boston got rolled in Golden State. I mean,
Yes.
this is the way it is. I said at the start, I thought if they could get 2 wins on this trip, I'd be okay. I think the big game, honestly, is Detroit. This would be a bonus game. I mean, Toronto's good. Toronto's the type team, you can't go into Toronto counting on a win.
No.
Boston wouldn't go into Toronto counting on a win.
No.
They're better prepared to get one, that's for sure, because they're better. But no, they're good, and so the Kings would have to play an outstanding game in order to get the win. But Detroit, to me, that's the pressure game because
I agree.
You really have to get that win.
Yes, you do. They're last in the Eastern Conference. Jerry, would it be a good decision to sign Nerlens Noel? Cody asks.
I'm not a Nerlens Noel fan.
I'm not either.
He does one thing, and that's he can block a shot. But I would sure like to see him get a more, if in fact they got a big guy who can block shots, somebody like Mo Bamba at Orlando would be a lot more attractive to me I think he's probably available because he can make threes, and he's a perfect fit with Sabonis. Noel would just get in the way, in my opinion.
Here's the other deal. When you're New Orleans Noel and you've been on as many teams as he's been on, there's a reason for that. Okay. It's not like he's just going to come to Sacramento and be a new player. You know what he is, and there's a reason why he's available. All right. So you always have to keep that in mind.
Well, you do, and I'm not sure that he's better than Alex Lynn. Alex Lynn can make a shot.
Yep.
I mean,
Good point.
Nerlens is probably a little better shot blocker and a little more mobile, but like you say, there's a reason why he's been where he's been and in limited roles all the
Yep.
time. I guarantee you, I'd take JaVale McGee over him in a minute.
Wow. All right.
In a minute. I mean, JaVale McGee, for all the ups and downs of his, but he's been on championship teams and played a role.
And again, according to the Sacramento Bee, Alex Len is not even with the team. Apparently, he was sent home with an illness, so he's not even available for the game tonight or in Detroit. Kings and Raptors coming up, 4:30 start. I'll be on the stream right after the game with Ryan in Sacktown. We'll break it down for you right after the game, the Kings and the Raptors. But I'm with Jerry, and I think that, anyone else that doesn't think so, Toronto is a very good team at home. Haven't been very good on the road this year, but again, 10-3 on their home floor. And Sacramento is taking on a team did not play last night, so they're well rested. The Kings did play last night, although nobody played, major minutes, but the trip up there, and it's all part of the deal. Everyone goes through it. So I want to see the Kings get off to a better start tonight, see how they do coming out of the gate in Toronto. But one thing that Jerry said, and it's very true, their crowd up there is excellent. That's a very good basketball city. Obviously,
it really is. They love their team.
They support their team. Yep.
And another thing, I don't like to make excuses for teams, but I'm going to make a little one here. Is just going to Canada is such a pain in the rear end, as you know, all the hassles of going through all the, especially late at night, getting in. I tell you, I mean, to me, I dreaded it. I love Toronto as a city, but I dreaded, the hassle of going through all the process of getting in late at night or after games. So anyway, that's just me.
They did beat the Cavaliers, but, Donovan Mitchell wasn't playing in that game, and he's their best player. So I understand the Kings didn't have Fox, but Mitchell not being on the floor for the Cavs, to me, was a bigger deal than the Kings not having Fox. That's my opinion. But, listen, you go through a stretch. You're going to play games where you're Sacramento and you go to LA to take on the Clippers on a Saturday afternoon, and they don't have, half their team. All right. You don't have Norman Powell. You don't have Kawhi Leonard. You don't have Paul George. That's a schedule game. So everyone goes through it, and you take advantage of it. That's the whole key to me. If you're taking on a team like Cleveland, who had only had one home loss on their home floor, and they don't have their best player, you capitalize on it. I give the Kings credit. They took care of business. That 19-0 run was unbelievable, Jerry, in that second
It really
game.
was. I mean, they played brilliantly. And I thought, certainly not having, Fox, but like you say, they didn't have Donovan Mitchell, who's playing at a superstar level, and really a very key reserve in Kevin Love. People forget, Kevin Love is a very valuable player on that team. So, but they did what they had to do, and like I say, for the most part, until I really thought the Knicks game was disappointing because Randall gets kicked out and Brunson gets hurt. And if they just played good, like they couldn't for 6 or 8 minutes there in the second half, they could have got back in that game, had a chance. Now, the Philly thing they were kind of dead in the water most of the way, really.
Somebody said, how would I grade this road trip if the Kings win one of the next two? Personally, I would grade it as a C. What would you grade it?
Yeah, I'd say C plus. I mean, you're not going to, you hope at the end of the year, only the very best teams, there'll be 4 or 5 at the most, have winning records on the road. Just mark that down. I always say you can always tell who's going to win a championship, but is a candidate to win a championship by their road record, and they'll have a winning road record, and there won't be a lot of them. There'll be 4 or 5, and then by the win margin. And so those are your two power things. And the Kings certainly, I think most of us would realize that, no, they're not one of the 4 or 5 best teams in this league. I think we'd like for them to be, but there's no reason to believe that right now.
Well, if they win their next 2 games, then I'm going to give them probably a B plus based on not having Fox for 2 of the games, everything else. So there's a big difference, coming up here, winning 2, going 1-1. I give them a C for this reason. You give them a C plus, which is average. I don't give them an average grade because they started the road trip 4 games over 500 and were playing at a very high level after going 0-4. So I'm judging their body of work when they got on the airplane to go to Milwaukee, and that's why I would give them a C as opposed to a C plus. But I'm from New York. I'm stricter than you being from Indiana, and so that's why I give them a C.
I believe I was a product of great inflation, so that's that. But it's a catch-22 kind of thing. But I mean, the Kings have played this is a good schedule, and Toronto fits right in with the quality of teams, some of the better quality of teams. So,
yep.
But I definitely the one. I mean, it'd be great to get the Toronto win and then a Detroit win. But you got a chance. Like I said when we started here, raise your hands if you thought you'd be happy if the Kings were a game ahead of the Warriors and a game behind the Phoenix Sun when the season started.
Great point. Do you think that Davion's defensive presence alone is enough to keep him on the floor with how bad he's been on offense when we need it?
I think it's good enough to put him in spots.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Mike Brown's been very good about that. I think, basically if you've got guys out there that you really want to make sure they're pressured and they have to work hard just to get anywhere on the floor, then you can do that. And it's easier to do that and use Davion more, as we pointed out earlier, when Fox is scoring the ball productively, Herter scoring the ball productively, Monk scoring the ball productively, then Davion, whether he scores or not that important, to be honest with you. Sadly, when those guys aren't, 2 of the 3 aren't, or all 3 aren't, then you notice it more. So I guess my answer would be, when the team is playing at its best, Davion's got a role in that.
Jerry, did they have Little League Baseball when you were growing up in French Lick?
They did. Just barely started. I think I was 12 years old. And the fact is, I think I got a uniform finally. And so they had just started, but certainly it's went a long way since then, of course.
All right, I want to bring Ryan in Sacktown. I hope I'm not surprising him. Ryan, did you play Little League Baseball?
I did.
Okay. So let me tell you what we did when I was playing Little League Baseball, and now I'm dating myself. Now, as we know, this handsome face, I'm nowhere near as old as Jerry. But when I played Little League Baseball, we used to fight, not fist fights, but we used to fight about who was going to be able to wear number 7, because Mickey Mantle was the icon of the Yankees when I was growing up. And my dad was the manager of our Little League team. And I'll never forget the day we were handing out the uniforms in the car. My dad said, "Hey, just so you know, when we get to the field, you're not wearing number 7. Okay?" I'm like, "What do you mean? I want number 7. No, you are not going to wear number 7," because my dad didn't want to play any favoritism. So I'm like, "Are you freaking kidding me? I can't wear number 7? What the hell is wrong with?" But so Jerry, that's my lesson early on in life.
Well, I was going to say, I mean, come on, Dad. What's Dad's for if you're not going to be a favorite? Let me be a favorite here.
But he did make it up. He let me play the whole game that day. All right, so I got a chance to play the whole game.
Hey, here's the thing. He had so much respect for Mickey Mantle, he didn't want Mickey's number on you.
Hey, Jerry, we used to go to Bat Day every year, and you can't do that now because you'd have murders in the state. You'd have people would be murdered. In the state.
My gosh!
You got the real bat, and when you went through the turnstiles, you would look at your bat real quick, and if it didn't have Mickey Mantle's signature on it, you would be depressed for the whole game. If you got Horace Clark or you got Tom Tresh or you got somebody else, you're like, no, because it was the luck of the draw. So those are the things I remember growing up.
Well, I was a big Mickey Mantle fan too. Because in those days, baseball was the number 1 sport, and World Series, is the Dodgers and the Yankees, and everybody in school, everybody in America watched it.
Did you guys collect baseball cards, Ryan? You collect baseball cards?
Oh yeah,
I did, and I had, but excuse me, Ryan. Yeah, I had a rookie Hank Aaron for years.
Oh boy.
my mom threw it away. I had a Hank Aaron rookie card. Oh,
Hey, but
I
listen,
mean,
if
I
your
love my
mom,
mom,
if
but she just about, I about had to make a decision on her right then.
yeah, but if your mom didn't know who Larry Bird was, I would assume that she didn't know who Henry Aaron was either. Okay, okay.
Well, she didn't care because there's a bunch of cards that had been there forever, and I didn't, so she just decided to toss them, So
Unbelievable. Ryan,
great.
I don't know about you, Ryan, but we used to trade our baseball cards all the time. We used to use them as, put them in the spokes of the wheels to here. And then,
Mhm.
I had boxes and boxes and boxes of cards. I had Mickey Mantle cards and I had everyone in there. And then, can you just imagine if you knew then what we know now about how the value of those cards would be, right? I mean, it's
Oh, it'd
crazy.
be unreal. Yeah, no, absolutely. You'd buy that like twice the size of a shoebox, and it'd have like 4 different slots for the cards, and you just line them up. We'd have trade days do on our sleepovers. I'll give you 3 for this, and whatever for that. But we didn't put them in the bike spokes. You guys were negligent. How are you going to ruin
Yeah,
a good car in the bike spokes? Come on.
Yeah, we put them in bikes. Now, I mean, that wouldn't be Mickey Mantle in a bike, I mean, but you might put Frank Silvera or somebody, a backup catcher in there, let him get spoked.
Who was your team growing up, Jerry?
Milwaukee Braves.
Yeah.
My dad was a Chicago Cubs fan, and the first game I ever saw was the Cubs and the Braves at Wrigley Field. And so I wasn't going to be for the same team. And it was Eddie Matthews was my hero, number 41. And that was Hank Aaron's rookie year, 1954.
Wow.
And so I followed them. And then when they moved to Atlanta, I turned on them like a dog. If you're going to leave Milwaukee, then I'm no longer a Braves fan. So that's
Could
that.
you imagine right now what a rookie Hank Aaron card would go for?
I don't know. I hate to think about it, and I remember telling Hank about that. I worked in his camps a couple of summers when
Oh,
I
no
was in
kidding,
Georgia.
really?
Yeah, they had he and Tommy Nobis ran a sports camps up in North Georgia, and I was a coach at West Georgia, and so I'd make a little extra money, go up there and work a few weeks, and usually on there'd be a Monday a day off somewhere along there and he'd come up and just visit with the kids, and I always remember though I've told this story many times, but I remember him getting in the batting cage, and you talk about ripping balls. I mean,
wow.
in case you needed to know the difference of a regular human being and an all-time great. I mean, every ball was just screamed. He just, he'd. But anyway, nice man. Oh, what a nice man he was. And obviously, truly, truly great player. But that was one of those memories. Probably it's kind of like the first time you see Tiger Woods hit a ball off the tee or Jack Nicklaus or somebody. But that's where he was in the batting cage and. Like, my God, how good is this guy? How can you do that?
Someone wants to know if you were a Brewers fan now.
No, the Braves. No, sorry. I mean, like I say, when my team left town, then they're no longer my team. I mean, I was still always a fan of Eddie Matthews and Henry Aaron, the players. They were always my heroes for a long time, but not the team.
All right, let's get some predictions. Ryan, when we come on the post game tonight, will we be talking a Kings win or a 3-game losing streak?
I think we're going to be talking a 3-game losing streak. Unfortunately, I think they'll. I have no reason to believe they're going to come out with any more legs or any more fire than they have the last couple nights. So I think maybe even possibly a double-digit lead, or a double-digit loss. But I hope I'm wrong.
Jerry, what's your gut feeling tonight?
Boy, I sure want to be wrong, but I'm kind of like with Ryan. I just think this Toronto team is rested and ready, and would be tough under any circumstances. But so hope I'm wrong.
Jerry, are you being a 4:30 start? I would assume that you're rested and ready too, right? This is a perfect start time for you.
This is a good start time for me. Yeah. I'll be mentally ready for it. So I'll close the door so Mrs. Reynolds won't hear me scream cussing at some of them occasionally. I apologize to fans. Sometimes I get a little upset, and so just, when you're there live, you have to conduct yourself like an adult. When I'm home, I can be just how I want to be.
Jerry, that's the one thing I always thought, the word that came to my mind when you and I were working all those games, all those years, adult. That's what.
Well, we tried to be. Well, we tried to be. I think we failed miserably at adulthood, but
We
I
weren't.
know we were trying.
Yeah, we weren't adults during the commercials, and when we were at halftime,
Oh,
and we were
no,
going,
no.
"What the hell did we just watch? How bad was
Yeah.
that?" Oh my gosh.
Good Lord.
Well, I'll give you my perspective from watching you guys growing up. You guys looked like two big kids having fun calling a basketball game, and I'm sure a lot of people would say that in the chat.
I still am. I
Yeah.
have no intentions of being a full-fledged adult. There's no reason to be. I'm just like I say, I'm just a teenager in an old crinkly body. That's all.
Well, Jerry, enjoy the game tonight. You have a good couple of days. We'll talk to you next week, and Ryan,
wait.
we'll see you on the post game.
Sounds good.
Take care, guys. Enjoy
All right.
it.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. Good stuff right there. I'm going to be getting ready, and I'll be going to Listen App in just a couple of minutes. You can check that out as well. Hey, we are also brought to you by Fosters and Paws. Just go to fostersandpaws.org/adopt. They are looking for a variety of things, and you can really help them out. They're really, I'll tell you, and I really mean this, they're really good at what they do. And what I mean is you can see the care that they take in their animals. All right. They do a fabulous, fabulous job. And I was checking out their website. I was looking at some of their videos. They are passionate, all right, about what they do. They are passionate animal advocates, and they really do work hard to save lives. And, again, I've talked about this. They primarily focus on those vulnerable dogs in shelters. Again, they're looking for adopters, donors, and fosters. To learn more, just spend a moment. I think you'll be very impressed with their website, fostersandpaws.org/adopt. All right, don't forget that I will be on with Rhino right after the game. All right, right after the game tonight here on YouTube. Hey, I hope you have a good afternoon. Enjoy the game. Have a good evening. And we'll talk to you a little bit later right here on If You Don't Like That with Grant Napier. So long, everybody.